So today, we'll see how we're doing on time, but basically we're going to really go much deeper into self-governance. Last time we pretty much only mentioned it. We'll go much deeper into it. There's a whole practice in it that if you do that one practice, honestly, it's everything. Then we'll go and talk about other traits today that are very connected to they're all connected. All the traits are connected. So we might be talking about truth. We'll see if we get onto shame as well. And it's going to be surprising as always, as it's been recently. It's not the usual way of talking about these things that we're doing here in this little series called The Face of Freedom. So before I go into self-governance, let's do a quick little summary of what we've gotten so far. So we started with the first part of this series was about humility and pride. And we say these traits are all not exactly good or bad. There is good in each one, and there's bad in each one in the sense of imbalance. Because what happens when a trait is not balanced is that the light of the self or God or whatever you want to call it can't actually flow through it. When there's an imbalance, you can think of that as a block. The light can't flow through it. It's like if you've ever seen maybe games or things like that where there's a circle that you can rotate and it has a line in the middle, like a channel in the middle, and things are flowing down. And if the channel is turned this way, it can't flow through. But when you balance it and you put the line in the right way, then it can flow through the line and out to the next part. So it can actually flow through you. So an imbalance means a lack of flow. All of our imbalances are really rooted in pride. So any problem you have in your life is the pride of the ego. We said that every trait has good things as well. So the good kind of pride is to be proud of what you are. Be proud of the beauty, the innocence, the glory that is what you are. That kind of pride is not evil because it's shared. It's not yours alone. It's not like you're proud of something that you are that nobody else is. It doesn't put you above others. It's always shared. So that's kind of a little clue here, that always the traits that are good, the goodness in all the traits is the part that shares it with everything. So if we spoke also about jealousy last week, and jealousy is I want it for myself. That's basically what jealousy is. What you have, I want it for myself. If I really, really love my house and I want nothing to happen to it, it's an attachment. Jealousy is a form of attachment. I'm jealous for my house. I want it to remain a certain way. I don't want anything to hurt it or harm it. I want it for myself. I want to keep it the way it is, you know? So we said you can be jealous for things. You can be jealous for ideas that you have that you want to protect. You want other people to think the same way that you think. This is a different way of the way we usually use the word jealousy, but it's an attachment to something that you want to protect. You want it to be yours. You want others to like it. If it's an idea that you cherish, you want it not to be damaged. If you're jealous for your beautiful car or whatever, you want it to not be damaged, right? And we said that the balancing of that trait lies in what I call will, because if jealousy is I want for myself, will is I want for all. So the jealousy will is on the same gradient because it's a will, either a selfish will or an altruistic will. Will is like the will of God, the will to bestow goodness, the will to give enjoyment, the will to see the goodness, the innocence. All right. So basically, this energy of will, which we see in jealousy, and we see in when it's the ego, it's jealousy. When it's the self, it's pure, clean will. This is the fuel of life. Without will, without desire, what's going to move you? Right? So if I have a negative will, jealousy, and I want the other person's girlfriend, that's going to move me. It's going to move me to try to break him up or do something to get the girl or whatever, right? If I have a will to do good, that's going to move me too. I'm going to move in the world thinking, how can I do good? So that's what really moves everything. So we showed that also in the tree of life, and I might go over the tree of life really quick again to show you some things, connect some dots, but it all starts with will. Everything starts with will. Okay. So there's more to say about that, but we spoke more in depth about jealousy last week. And what we want to see is that humility, when you have genuine humility, that means you're balanced. What does it mean that you're balanced? It means that the light can flow through your vessel perfectly. Then your vessel is not a closed vessel with a bottom, it becomes a channel. That means the light flows through you and to everyone else. So you're literally, to be the self embodied means actually to be a channel, to have no bottom, to have not be a receptacle where you're receiving for yourself, filling yourself up for your own enjoyment, but you'll actually receive much more, and your flow of love and light through you will be infinite if you open up your vessel and let it flow through, and then you receive and give, you receive and give, and you receive and give, and that's what we're designed to be. But our ego gets in the way and says, nope, I want to hold this for myself. It's about me. I don't care about what you get. It's about me. And it maintains this separation. So we have humility. And if the humility is right, we'll have trust. We trust what happens. We have the humility to understand that everything that's happening in our lives is actually for us and not against us. We can accept what is. We are surrendered before what is, right? We have proper humility. We don't argue with reality. If we argue with reality, that's anger. Anger is the opposite of trust in that sense. Anger is an argument with God, an argument with what is. It comes from pride. I know the way. God doesn't know the way. Now that things aren't going my way, I'm angry, right? So basically every trait is connected to every other trait. So I'm kind of showing you how humility is connected to trust, pride is connected to anger. And you'll see we spoke a little bit about will and jealousy, and this is why we're talking today about self-governance, because self-governance starts with the correct will. To govern yourself, you have to have, what is my will? What am I trying to get to by governing myself? Right? So before we go into that, just quickly to show you a little bit of what it looks like when we look at the tree of life, what it looks like to speak about all these traits. So here at the top, it says infinity. This is the infinite light that wants to flow through all of these, they're called sfirot, all of these sfirot, and reach a result. This one is the result. And if everything is in perfect balance and we're humble and everything is good, then the result is that divinity has been able to come down to earth, right? The kingdom is being established on earth if we are allowing the flow of the self through. Does that make sense? So we want to balance each one of these. Let's say this one, chesed, means grace, means loving kindness. It's the trait of bestowal. It's the most godly trait here, actually, because it's just giving without wanting anything back. If this is balanced, then that means that the light can flow through it, right? So how do these connect a little bit to the traits that we've been speaking about is this way. Let's say we spoke about anger. And we said anger is in a way, you should never feel anger. You should never identify with your anger. Anger is always against God. It's always, I'm in an argument with what is. Except, as I said last week, when it comes from God. When anger comes from God, that means that you haven't been listening. You haven't been listening, and God's been whispering and talking gently and everything. At some point, you get so fed up with not listening to the truth because you're suffering from listening to the lies. And then the anger wells up in you like a fire, and you realize that you need to make a change. Something different needs to happen. But when it's anger that is more like blame and you're dying to shout at somebody, this trait of gvura, which we've spoken about, is discipline, limiting. This trait, if it's developed in you, is what's going to help you to not do that, to overcome the desire to, lay your wrath on someone else, right? So this is the quality of overcoming. So for example, it works really well with anger, to be able to overcome your anger. We spoke about last week. Also, there's actual things that you can do, like speak softly, and that calms you down. Or Trevor gave us a few things that we can do with our nervous system to not get angry or to calm ourselves down. So that will connect to this trait. Then this one, tiferet, as I always say, that's the heart where there's love, forgiveness, mercy, compassion. And it's going to be in your heart's going to be in a happy place when you're giving and you're receiving. These two, giving and limiting your giving when you need to, or knowing how to receive as well. When these are in good balance, your heart is happy. Why? Because if you're giving too much and receiving too little, your heart's not happy because you feel, I don't know, unappreciated, taken advantage of, something like that, let's say. Or if you give too little and try to take too much, again, your heart's not going to really be happy because you're too in your ego. You're too thinking about what can I get, which is a state of misery, right? The joy actually lies in being in a place of wanting goodness for all, giving, not getting. So this place is also the seat. I mean, you could say it this way. This is also the seat of humility. When the heart is happy, it's in a good place. It's humble before, creation, before God. But humility can also be considered the result, the end result. So it's depends how you want to look at it. What else? So let's say netzach. This one I've been telling you, it's perseverance. This is, for example, persevering with your loving thoughts, persevering with it, not having, yesterday I was devoted to all my loving thoughts, but today, fuck it, today I'm going to go all out in hate and anger, right? So, so that's like perseverance. This one is connection. So this is always the part that also requires humility. It's looking for the common denominator, what's more the same rather than what's different. So it's just to show you a little bit like how the traits we're speaking about, like these traits like humility and pride and anger and jealousy and all of that stuff, where they can kind of land here in the tree of life. And so when all of these circles are, the sfirot, are really in a good place, they're all balanced, then what happens is that the infinite light flows freely through all of it, and the result is undistorted. The result is pure goodness, pure love that has made its way into the world. When something, anything, any one of these is out of place, then distortions happen. And then what we get in the world is a feeling that there's so much evil in the world. And then we say, why is God evil? And God, meanwhile, is just being this infinite light, and God's not evil. It's that we're not flowing the light through us properly that distorts it so much and creates all kinds of vacuums, all kinds of places where the light can't flow. And then we get what we call, oh, evil. There's evil in the world. Evil is just the places that the light has not been able to reach. And that, by the way, my brothers and sisters, is what a disease is. It's a place where the light cannot reach. Okay. So far, so good as a sort of summary. Okay. All right, so let's dive into the self-governance. This is really, really exciting stuff here today. So when I spoke about self-governance last week, I said this is about being a queen, about being a king, governing yourself. Because if you don't govern yourself, what you are is a slave. If you're not a king, you're a slave or a beggar. And what that means is, let's say we have thoughts, we have emotions, we have body, right? The body has its needs. Let's say we give too much power to the temptations of the body, or whatever you want to call it, the needs of the body, right? then we're a slave to our body's lust or desires. We're a slave to it. Yeah. If we're too emotional, then we might be a slave to our own emotionality. If we're too mental, we might be a slave to our own thinking, right? So we want to balance thought, emotion, and body. We want to govern them. And the only way to actually govern them rather than be enslaved by any one of them is to understand that you are not any one of them. They are parts of you. So it's up to you to look at your kingdom, look at your mental, emotional, and physical states and go like, okay, what needs to happen here to make them more in balance? And that's things that you usually do within a situation. You find yourself in a situation and you realize you're too up in your head. You maybe try to feel your body a bit more, maybe try to sense and feel the situation a bit more rather than go about it so mentally, right? Or if you're too much in your emotions that you can't think straight, govern it. Turn down the volume knob on your emotions so that you can think a little bit. Okay, but how do you do this? This is really like nice to say, but how do we actually do this? So, okay, so that's the idea of governing yourself. Now we're going to really go into how you actually do it. So in order to go into how we actually do it, I have to sort of remind us of some things that we've already spoken about before, but we really, really need to be clear on it. That there is no physical world. There isn't. Everything is spiritual. Everything is spirit. And the world is almost like a symbolic representation of meanings that are made in the mind. Okay, so the reason that we are in this video game of a world at all to begin with is because a video game is a great way to learn where you as consciousness are not balanced. The video game reflects it to you. You have relationships, you have all kinds of situations, and you're like, okay, if this is just an external picture that my inner world is projecting, then what do I need to change in my inner world to make the external different? You don't go up and change the world. I never ever tell you to change form. What I'm really always telling you is to change thought. Yeah, it's your thought that hurts you. It's not actually the world. There is no world outside of you. We're not here like in a physical world. We're consciousness dreaming of form, right? So when we add to that really also non-duality, there's none beside him, right? There's only what we call God. There's only what we call love. There's only what we call consciousness. It's not limited really in any way. And God is all in all. So each one of us is God on a particular journey. If you guys know that song, What If God Was One of Us? Well, what if God was all of us? Right? God is all of us. And so you're literally looking at God having different journeys. It's like water has liquid, solid like ice, and then like steam, but it's all still water, right? So this is all God in various states of consciousness, right? But it's all God. You're never meeting anyone who isn't God because there's none beside him. So why are we saying all this? Why is this so important? That our self is the self of God, that we do not have a separate self. So if you're proud, what the hell are you proud of? I'm proud of myself. Yeah, but you don't have a separate self to be proud of. That's why I say the only right pride is to be proud of what you really are. I can be proud of the self I share with you, then it's not separate. So we are all God itself interacting with himself. Basically, we're all God himself interacting with his own infinitude. Yeah. And it's interesting because it's as though God divided himself to the Father and the Son, where the Father is this infinite light and the Son is a vessel that is made to receive the light, because infinite light has to flow somewhere. It wants to give itself to something. Imagine you are the treasure of treasures. Don't you want to be seen? Don't you want to be enjoyed? Don't you want to be, that's the desire of bestowal, to bestow enjoyment and goodness. So that's all God wants. God wants you to be enjoyed. God wants you to receive this light. But our receptacle is full of distortions because we're imbalanced, as I showed you before. So the light can't flow. The only way that the light can flow is if this is the receptacle, we open it up and make it a channel. That means we have to cancel ourselves before God. We have to stop saying, God, there's you and there's me, because that puts a limit. The moment you say me, you put a limit on the light. Now the light is given you, but it can't flow from you onwards. You put a block, you put a wall on the oneness. Does that make sense? That's all we're undoing. We're changing this idea of ourselves as a receptacle to a channel. And that requires humility, because we have to completely cancel ourselves before God. We have to get out of the way. We have to get out of the way and be just the flow of light itself. And stop thinking about me. I want to get the light. Give me the light. Give me the light. Just for me, for me, for me. The moment you start to think for all, it's not me, it's we. The moment you start to think that way, then obviously you're realizing that you're giving to yourself, capital S self. There's only God's self, right? The moment you start thinking and understanding that that the way to receive is to give, let it be open, let it flow through you, and then you always receive it. Yeah. If you close the bottom and you're just a vessel with a closed bottom, you can only receive so much. So basically, this state of receiving is when a person is focused on receiving materially, or gaining status, or worldly knowledge, or just very worldly things. This is when the person understands that all true enjoyment is spiritual, because everything is really spiritual. There is no matter. All is really spirit. So you open yourself to be a channel of this infinite light and love to come through you. And I hope you understand how that's humility. You have to humble yourself. You have to say, it's not about me. It's about the truth that wants to flow through me. It's about the love that wants to flow through me. It's about the goodness that wants to flow through me. It's not about me. But the funny thing is, when you say that, you are happy because you're receiving that way. That's the correct way to receive. Does that make sense? Because if not, feel free to ask here.
It seems a little bit confusing to me if we're the channel, the way itself for the goodness and the love to flow, that if we get out of the way, then where are we?
When you get out of the way, where are you? Oh, no, you're just changing. Okay, good question. So you changing
I feel like
yourself?
that's like an elimination of the flow if I'm not able to be the flow.
So you are the flow. It's the you that's getting out of the way is a you that is a concept of you. It's not really you. It's the concept of you as something finite, that needs to get only for yourself. That the concept that doesn't, the self concept that doesn't understand that the way to really receive is to give.
So when we're identified, with spirit, then that's not to be worried about.
Yeah. When you're identified with spirit and you see everyone as spirit and you want goodness and love for all, then there's no block. It's when you are seeing separation and you're saying, I want good for me, but fuck you. Then you've closed the vessel, because you're putting a bottom on the vessel. I'm receiving the light, but fuck you. I'm not going to let it flow onto you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do you understand what my thought was on that? Like, if you're flowing and then you're like, oh, let's get out of the way, then it dries up.
Yeah, if the real you is going out of the way, then that is like a hole in oneness. That's a problem for sure. Yeah. So we're saying obviously only that the false you needs to get out of the way. Yeah. Yeah. Does that make sense
Daniel,
now? Or
can you hear me, Daniel? Because I don't know where I went.
You went into the ether. I hear you, but I can't see you.
That's the weirdest thing, isn't it? Well, that's just the
it's because
truth.
your camera is on your forehead and not on your face. Your camera is facing your forehead.
I don't know what you mean.
That your screen, if you just lower it a bit, we'll be able to see you. Bring it closer to you.
Or I don't know how to do that. You know what? I'm not good with the computer. I'm old. I don't even know what you're saying. Anyway, what I want to say is it's either ego consciousness or spirit consciousness. So many people are still in the ego consciousness, right?
Well, including us, yes.
Well, yes, of course. I know that I am. But I'm just saying, I just wish I knew how to do this stuff. But again, I don't know. Anyway.
You lift your head, we can see you a little bit more, by the way. There you go. You did it.
But I don't see me.
Oh, maybe you don't. I don't know why you don't see you. So settings problem.
I think that God's just trying to say, hey, honey, you were never Sharon. But the thing that I want to understand basically is that really all spirit is really here. Because that's what I never could understand, or it's consciousness, but isn't consciousness, it's the domain of the ego, but we're still, if somebody doesn't awaken, does it matter like at all?
Everyone will awaken. There's no way that it won't happen. It's just a process.
But they keep coming back, right?
We keep coming back for this work of balancing so that we can become
for
the light.
Yeah, because from your book, I see sometimes I'm confused because
once you're like God, once you and God are the same, there's no difference. You've become God, you've become this beautiful bestowal energy. You flow the light through you, you're done. There's nothing more for you to do. You're just, the Course in Miracles will call it undoing your ego. I'm speaking about it as balancing the traits within you so that everything can flow.
Right, that's what I want. Yeah, because I've had like many shifts.
When there's too much pride, for example, the light can't flow through. You're literally blocking the light. So what I'm saying is take that block out, and then you become a channel and it flows through.
So we do have control over that, right? That's what you're basically saying. We have some control here.
Okay, so that's what I'm getting to right now.
Okay.
So yeah, so like, let's say we're looking at it from the angle of everything is predetermined versus we have choice. How do we work with this? So it's just very important to understand that you're not a body, you're not your thought, you're not your emotions, your consciousness itself. That's why you can actually govern them. What does that mean? How do you govern them? This is a key. I'm giving you guys like a huge key here. If those who get it will benefit immensely, others will get it maybe a little bit later, needs some time to trickle. But the key is this. You ready? I don't get paid enough for this. I'm kidding. The key is identification. So it's not about controlling form. It's about the thoughts that you're having at any given moment, the thoughts that are flowing through the consciousness that you are. Which ones do you identify with and which ones do you not? Which ones do you say, this is a part of me? This isn't a part of me. Because if we look at it as everything begins with your thinking, the meaning you assign to things, your interpretations, and that the emotion doesn't just happen in a vacuum, and an emotion arises from a meaning or an interpretation that you give to things. And then eventually it has a physiological component, right? It seeps into the body level. So thought, emotion, body, we want to work on the level of thought if we really, really want to touch the root of our suffering, because I say the thoughts is what makes us suffer, not actually the circumstances. So the circumstances are a reflection. They're not real. There is no chair I'm sitting on. There's no body. There is no air I'm breathing. All of this is a video game. So what this means is that, let's say that everything is predetermined. Let's say you will go through what you're going to go through. Forget it. You can't change it. It's like it's set. Like your being decided, this is what I need to go through in order to balance myself. I'm going to go through it. So you have no choice about that, let's say. And then the only choice that you do have, because you have to be given some freedom of choice in order to balance yourself. Otherwise, it's just a dead program running on its own. There's no living thing in it. If I program a computer to do a certain function and just does it, it doesn't require sentience. It doesn't require consciousness. We do have the freedom of choice on the level of what to identify with. So when I'm speaking to a person and the person is being difficult for a moment, and I see the thought come up, what a fucking, like, some anger and some like blame and all that kind of stuff, and just like, and I feel my heart starting to close, right? Because if that's the meaning I give, if I give it something in my thought that separates me from them, that says, you are not worth being open towards anymore. What happens to me is I have now stopped being a channel. I've become a closed vessel. I've stopped the flow. I'm separating from the other person. I'm not willing to give them. They suck. No forgiveness in my heart. And that's it, right? So I've identified with that. Now, the same situation can happen, and I can choose, because I have this knowledge now. I understand that my power lies in what I identify with. My power doesn't lie in having lots of money so I can influence form or whatever, because you can have lots of money and you can have influence and all of that, but still be miserable. So, so the moment I see that thought arise that starts to separate me from that other person, and let's say I say instead, oh, you know what? That's okay. They are where they are, whatever, doesn't matter to me. I choose to stay open. It doesn't even matter to me what they do or not. I choose to be a channel, not a closed vessel. Channel. I want to stay open. I want to keep the love flowing. I want to keep the goodness flowing, right? And then I have these thoughts of like, you know what? You're a divine spark. I'm choosing to see your innocence and your goodness right now instead of all my judgment. And I say that is a part of me. That is a part of who I am. That I will keep. So think about it this way. We looked at the tree of life, and there's one sphira that's called perseverance. It's also called, the word for it is actually eternity. Think about it this way, that you are eternal. You're not really in time. You're not really in space. You live, your world is actually your thoughts. If you live in self-loathing thoughts, what world do you live in? Even if the whole world around you is really nice, you don't get to see it, because you see what you are. You don't see what's actually there. You see yourself. Yeah. Only when you've reached a point where you're so canceled before God that there's only light, love, and goodness, you actually see what is. So we're removing these distortions. And the way to remove these distortions is to identify only with truth. Stop identifying with the lies. Easier said than done, because when you identify with truth, to your ego, that's death. So anything that's temporary or passing ultimately isn't you. That's why you're not your body, you're not your emotions, you're not even your thoughts. The thoughts of God, let's say, the thoughts of love, they're eternal. They're not something that is, because love is our nature, whatever is of love is forever. Anything that is not of love is just a passing dream. So what I'm saying is, we want to identify, we want to be aware of our thinking and identify only with the thoughts that really represent who we really are. So how do we do that? As I said last week, it always starts with will. Everything starts with will. Once you have the will to be in goodness, to see the goodness in all, to stay open, to have an open heart, to operate from your heart, you can word this whatever way you want, but it's a state of connectedness. And your will is to maintain that state no matter what, not let anything faze you or take you out of it. You always want to stay open. Let's say that's your will. And you've stated it to yourself consciously, because we always have will operating, but we have a ton of unconscious will going on, a ton of unconscious will. Once you've said, this is my will, this is what I will cleave to, this is my purpose, that, and I'm intentional and deliberate and conscious of this will. Now, as you go through your day, something amazing is going to happen. You're going to be much more aware of the contrast of what doesn't go with that will, what doesn't go hand in hand with that will. So you have to set a goal. You have to set an aim. If the aim is good thoughts, I want to think good about all of you, only good. If the aim is good thoughts, then anything that doesn't go with that will stand out to you a lot more. Suddenly, and by the way, as I always say, brace yourself, put on a seatbelt, because what's going to happen is you'll go like, gosh, I thought I was such a wonderful person, and that I wasn't arrogant or this or that. And then suddenly you realize there's a whole subtler and subtler and subtler levels of thought where you're just very quickly thinking, I'm better than this person because I don't react like that. Right. And it's very subtle, and it's very easy to fall into. And whoever says, I only think good thoughts here, that what that really means is you're just not aware. That's what it really means. Okay. I'm not trying to belittle you. God forbid, really, 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 God forbid. It's just that I've seen from my own experience that the image that we have of ourselves and who we really are, there's quite a gap. So while we all think we're these wonderful people and these good people and all of that, I like I told you last week, I have a lot of work to do. Okay. You can speak for yourself. I'm going to speak for myself.
Well, I would like, I can't see my face, but so I should have raised my hand, but what I don't understand is once, like for me, I had a shift 2 years ago that was dramatic, and I live in the light, but I still have very strong ego. When I say very strong, I don't really react like I did. It pauses. However, just where I'm at now, like Sharon is slowly but surely thinning out. So you're giving us skills now for that. That's what you're basically saying, and what we can and can't do. Is that what you're saying?
What to focus on maybe in order to help you be more abiding in the self and less in the ego. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just giving you a way to focus on it that is going to feel more practical and more like I know what to actually do. Yeah, you could say do. Yeah.
Well, that's helpful. I did this now. Do you live like that? Are you able to discipline yourself? Like I have my kids, my husband. It's pretty hard sometimes to do it.
It is hard. It is hard, Sharon. I am right there with you. Yeah. I asked me, are you able to discipline yourself? I went like,
yeah, you're honest. I love that about you. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely could use some work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love honesty from a teacher.
We're in this together,
I love that. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. By the way, since we mentioned the word doing, I remember studying Gurdjieff's work. Has anybody heard of George Ivanovich Gurdjieff, The Fourth Way? Some of you are nodding, some yes, I'm not. Well, he said something really interesting. He explained that there's like 7 levels of consciousness, and like man number 7 is like the high, like man number 4 is like awake or awakening, and then there's higher and higher levels, and man number 7 is basically what I call in my teaching being like he's reached sameness with God. There's no the ego doesn't govern that consciousness at all anymore. And what Gurdjieff said is that at that level man can do, and by doing, and I apologize to Gurdjieffians if I know they're very jealous for their teaching. It's very important for them that it be understood correctly, and maybe I'm not understanding it correctly, but what I understood is that when you are really like God, then like Jesus said, all power in heaven and earth is given you, becomes a reality. You really, really feel that. And now you can actually do things like, for example, be in a different place, be in a different time. You be aware of some secret of the universe, like get answers to anything you want, things like that. You can do more the more your consciousness or awareness is expanded. There's more freedom because everything is mind. So the more free your mind is, like Morpheus would tell Neo in the Matrix, free your mind. The more you can free your mind, the more you can do. If at first you think you can't jump from this building to that one, later on you realize, wait a second, there's no building, there's no feet, there's no jumping. No, that's not where it's at. It's not a physical ability. It's a removal of a limitation in the mind. When you understand things on that level, because there is no world, then yeah, you won't even need to jump from one building to another. You can just stop appearing in one building and appear in the other, So that's not really important, but just to understand that the more you go on this path, because it shouldn't be, don't take egoic interest in this, because again, this path is not for you. This path is for you to be a channel that things can flow through you. That's how you enjoy. To the ego, it sounds like, what do you mean? I need to be the recipient of stuff. And to spirit, it's like, I'm the recipient of stuff, but it doesn't end with me. I receive to give so that the flow can be infinite, right? Yeah. So it's not really important but these are just things that will happen naturally. So in Hinduism, for example, they call them siddhis. Siddhis are abilities that develop as you awaken. Yeah. But it's very dangerous to start using them for selfish reasons. That's why the teaching is first become more altruistic. And then as you do that, these things can be opened unto you, but you'll use them from the right place because you'll be in humility. Yeah. Okay, let me see if I have more to say about self-governance. So simply to summarize the process here, it starts with a will to do good, right? Then because you have that will and that's your focus throughout the day is to be in good thoughts, then you become aware by contrast of all the thoughts that are judgmental. And then you say to God, I don't want this. This isn't a part of me. I'm going to identify with the good thoughts, and you keep the flow going. And if you get to a point where you can do that 24 hours a day, that means you're balanced. Yeah. So the reason I was talking also about eternity is I want and about you living in the thoughts you live in are really your world, not the physical thing. It's the thoughts that you live in, because you can be in a beautiful mansion in Bel Air or whatever, but your thoughts are all of grief and pain and depression. That's the world you actually live in, not the mansion. Doesn't make a difference. So, satsang in a way is about good company, true company, being in the company of truth and goodness. And so, think about it this way in order to motivate you to think only good thoughts. Think that your thoughts are your world, and that the thoughts that you persevere with are going to go with you onwards in your life. The thoughts you think more, you're going to have more of that world of the view. So be very careful what you want your world to be. If you want your world to be good, think good things about everyone, right? And as you think good, good will come to you, because it's just, that's the way it just works. People say, why is this evil happening to this good man? Well, maybe this good man isn't as good as you think. Yeah. All right. Does that make sense? Do you guys want to ask about self-governance or about this practice? Do you understand the practice? What I generally suggest is, they say that within 21 days, if you work on something, then, your brain chemistry sort of changes, and you sort of have a new pattern, a new way that your neurons fire in the brain or something like that. I would go, when we're talking about deep things, I would go with more than 21. I usually recommend 40 days. If you try to make this like for fun, a 40-day challenge where I'm gonna cleave to the will to think good, to do good, to stay open, and I'm gonna identify only with what is true, loving thoughts, only loving thoughts. Yeah, and remember that loving includes who? You. So it has to be, it doesn't mean that if you're going to be loving, you're going to let people walk all over you because you're being loving now for 40 days, right? It means that you'll have that part that I showed in the tree of life that has that discipline, that limit, and say, hey, I love you, but there's something that needs to change here. That's also self-love. Yeah, you're receiving as well. So 40 days. Who's up for the challenge? 1, 2, 3. Everybody, I'm going to assume that Sharon and Rico are holding up their hands because I can't see them. Good. I am so intrigued to see where we'll be 40 days from now, if we really hold this. Because what I suggest doing is make a calendar, make a table with 40 days. And before you go to bed at night, put a V, like I did it today, if you really feel that over 50, 55%, you really did that. And then raise the bar so that in the last 10 days, you expect 75% of yourself. Don't expect too much to start with. Expect about 50% to begin with. Try to up it to 75 or even 80 in the last 10 days between day 30 and 40. And put a V every time you feel you've succeeded with it, right? By the time you have 40 Vs, you're in a completely different state of consciousness. Completely different. Yeah. But again, as I said, it's going to hurt because you see things that you've been trying to hide from yourself. We're not true with ourselves. We're not honest with ourselves. We pride ourselves in that, and it's false pride. Larissa, did you want to ask anything?
Yeah, thank you. So I feel like I've really set the intention really strongly to be awake and not let the triggers carry me away. And I have a teenage daughter, and we butt heads. And I know it's my projection onto her. Like, all the things that drive me crazy about her are things that I can't accept about myself.
Yes.
So and yet, so I grew up in quite a active household, just a lot of arguing and door slamming and drama. And so I feel like my nervous system is wired to be reactive. So,
yeah.
And I know there's things, and I do yoga, and there's times when I feel like I can see it. But a lot of the time, 6:30 in the morning, tired. So I feel like I already know I'm gonna, not be able to do it a lot of the time. So,
Right.
But maybe that's the ego just setting myself up. But I'm just wondering, so if I do hit a bump, I get triggered, react.
What do you do?
So yeah.
Good.
I mean, forgiveness practice, right? Or compassion. Compassion.
So this is the thing that really eventually takes some learning, is to see what it's, and people usually get it wrong at first when they first learn this stuff, is to see what is it that's out of balance. Because forgiveness is always, forgiveness is not like, do I need to do it now or do I not need? Always forgive in your heart. But what do you do externally? So forgiveness, always forgive, always, anyone, anywhere, anytime. But what do I actually do? So I'm dealing with this teenage girl, and we butt heads and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes what's needed, for example, is, to shut up and listen. Shut up and just listen and just acknowledge, make the person feel heard. That. Sometimes what's needed is maybe more communication, more speaking, actually, rather than shutting up. But speaking from where? If you've already in your mind made her wrong and now you speak, nothing good is going to come of it. Nothing. Yeah. So remember the goodness, remember her innocence, remember her goodness, remember that who she really is God in a different state of consciousness. You're both God.
Yeah, I totally, I hear you, and I'm like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And yet in the moment, I mean, I've been doing the lessons for nearly 3 years now, and
Course in Miracles.
A Course in Miracles.
Yeah.
But I've been sloppy. I haven't been, it's not like written on my hand every day. I think it's that yeah, I think it's what you said, setting such a strong intention, really connecting to that commitment to see, to not see
Right.
her as an ego, or to see,
Yes.
to see the spirit. Yeah. I just feel like I need to put tape over my mouth or something, like to slow myself down.
Right, right, right. So,
Something to slow myself down, you know?
so that means you need more feminine, less masculine. You need to slow down, you need to soften up, you need to listen more. And, forgiveness, though, when I say forgive always, anywhere, anytime, then, and anyone, it's actually, forgiveness is a state of being. If you have the will to see good, to think good, to bestow goodness on all, which really means to accept them. Accept them. This is who you are. Fine. That's who you are. I still wish you all good, all the goodness. This is who you are. Fine. It's not my preference, but that's who you are. I want all the good for you, just as you are. Not the condition of like, when you change a little bit, then I'll want all the good for you. So that lack of acceptance creates a resistance in the relationship, right? And so it's that full acceptance, that wishing well, that watching the innocence. That's the state of being, of forgiveness, is I'm staying always open. I'm choosing to love you. I'm choosing, and that's it. And honestly, at the end of the day, it doesn't have anything to do with her. It's about who you are. What's true about me? I'm love. So why am I judging? Why am I identifying with my judgment? Right? And if you come from that state of being, you can still be firm sometimes when it's really needed. But this is what's so hard for people to understand. I say you can exhibit anger, but don't actually be angry. So, that's when you're really in a state of being of forgiveness. Your heart is open, but you sometimes know to say a strong no, or we will not do it this way, or whatever. But inside of yourself, you're still open to the being. You still actually love them. And they may or may not believe you, depending on their level of consciousness and what they think is possible. But I guarantee you that is possible. And I actually, that I do live what I'm telling you.
So if somebody calls your bluff in that scenario, then what do you do?
What do you mean by calls your bluff? What's your bluff?
You're pretending to be angry. You're not actually angry. So you're not actually going to punish them if they.
Then you just say, well, okay, so you call my bluff. Well, you know what I'm trying to get. I'm not against you or anything. I just think this will work better this way. You just talk to them, level with them.
So I've experienced where if I'm not willing to follow through with the punishment, that the person continues to abuse me.
Good.
So, well, in some situations, I found that I have to actually strike the other down in order to end the dispute.
You have to what in order to end the dispute?
Strike them down. Like, for example, when my will to kill has flared up, I have to cut it off to bring myself to a state of peace.
Yeah, you've closed the flow if you have a will to kill. Yeah.
So, but I have to, what I mean is when that arises, whether it's in another or in myself, I have to like separate that off in a way and to be able to be free of it. So I can't pretend like I'm going to separate it off. Otherwise, it will continue to be there.
Okay, so what do you actually do in those situations?
I kill the will to kill.
Good. So this is the trait of overcoming. Like I said, the self-discipline part, right? Like also for Larissa, is that when she sees that she just speaks, and if she's really honest from herself, she's speaking from ego. The ability to overcome it, to discipline yourself in that moment, the ability to in your case, to kill the will to kill is a good thing. You're overcoming the evil in you. You're literally overcoming it. That's the work. So, but you have to see what's needed. Again, you might say, I need space because this is really hard for me. I'm not that self-disciplined that I can sit in front of you right now and not like have steam coming out of my nose. I can overcome it. I'm not going to obviously hurt you, but I might also need to take some space to calm down and to get my head straight. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to take space for yourself. You're allowed to say, I don't think I can continue this conversation in a constructive way right now. And I understand that we need to finish it and we will, but I need to go calm down right now. Or something of that nature. Yeah. Does that help, Connor?
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's why a lot of the sphira that's about discipline and limiting and overcoming, it's called gvura. Gvura means heroism. Sometimes you have to be a hero. You have to be, it's a heroism in a way to shut up when you want to yell. It's also heroism sometimes to stand up for yourself when you're being, when somebody is gaslighting you or taking advantage of you or something like that. It's a heroism, because if you're a very nice person, you just want to say, let's just get along, but sometimes you have to go like, no, my voice needs to be heard. If you can't hear it, then we have nothing to do here. Yeah, that's heroism. It's not easy to do. It's hard. You get perceived in a negative way because you're standing up for yourself. So again, what I'm telling you, Larissa and all of you, is that when we understand what the face of freedom, which is the name of this whole series, consists of, the traits, humility, the trust, the jealousy, we'll talk about shame, we'll talk about truth, all of these traits, when you start to know what they are, you see, okay, what is out of balance here? But like I said in the first lesson, you can always go to pride and humility, because that is the roots. That is the root of everything. Like I said at the beginning, if you're having problems in your relationship, check your pride. Yeah. I'm right. You're wrong. Yeah. It's not about that. It's about connecting heart to heart. It's about, I hear where you're coming from. I know you're good. When I know you're good, I can listen to you. Because I know what you're telling me isn't to attack me. It's not against me. It's actually to bring us together more. Yeah. Does that make sense? Okay. And that's why I said also, when we were talking about, I was teaching a little bit about the tree of life, and I said the bottom sphira, which is called foundation. It's one before the bottom. The bottom one is called kingdom. The one before that is called foundation or connection. I in one of the gatherings that we had, I said, when you work on that one, what you want to work on is finding a common denominator between you and the other person. And when you give a criticism, but you give it while that sphira is balanced, the one of connection, then you're giving a criticism with the purpose in your heart and mind to get closer, not to separate. Yeah. And if you receive criticism and you see the other's intention as coming from a will to get closer, not to separate, you will receive their criticism infinitely better. Does that make sense? Give them the benefit, give them the credit, see them, just give them just assume they're coming from godliness. Just assume the best. Yeah. When you assume they're coming from their ego, it's already over. It's going to be a fight. Okay. Other questions or things you guys want to share, experiences, things that are coming to mind, challenges, whatever it might be, wisdom that you have, insights, anything. Let's take a moment to just absorb this a second, shall we? Just let it sink in for a minute. Just breathe a little. Now, since we spoke about self-governance, being a queen, being a king, I wanted to take a second and look at everyone here and put a crown on their head. Make them queens, make them kings. See them as the Son of God. The King of Kings has created only queens and kings. Every one of you is a queen. Every one of you is a king. And when you put the crown on someone's head, you see their holiness. You see their magnificence. You honor them. Now imagine going into conversations that are difficult this way. Okay, anything anybody wants to share before I move on? Are we ready for more information, or is this enough for now? What do you guys feel?
Daniel, could I just
Please.
interject one thing?
Please.
That I just came up when you were speaking was thinking of receiving everything as a gift. So receiving, like, if my daughter is, rude, or what I interpret it as being rude, to receive that as a gift.
Why is it
I'm trying to reframe it.
Beautiful. So, you're doing it amazing. Yes. But let's see why it's a gift. The moment you say everything's a gift, you're going into humility. That's the right direction. Yeah? Because if God is good, why would you be receiving anything that's bad? It's not bad, it's good. And the reason it's good is because it's there to help you show where you're out of balance. So if something's happening and you've lost your ability to listen, you're in anger. Anger comes from pride, from lack of trust, lack of humility. Then you know, oh, got it. This is where I'm out of balance right now. So when you said, like before, like to shut up or something, that's you not being mean to yourself, God forbid. It's not that. It's you're saying, oh, I see where my error is, and I'm gonna look for the correction instead. So that's why I say you always have to find what you need to balance in any given such situation. For those who are afraid to speak, you might not need to shut up. You might need to have the heroism. I am going to speak. For those who talk too much, humble yourselves. Yeah. Good. So it is all a gift. And if you see it that way, you and God are in love. You'll be in love. Yeah. Okay. So since it's very connected to the self-governance, and self-governance was connected to the last thing we spoke about, which is will. Everything starts from will. What else is connected to self-governance is the quality or trait of truth. These are traits that we all have. These aren't traits that certain personalities have and others don't have. Everyone has will. Everyone has humility. Everyone has the ability to govern themselves. Everyone has truth. What's the imbalance in truth? Obviously, lies. When you're identifying too much with lies, your truth trait is off. Truth is the basis, is the root, is everything that is of God. Everything that is of love is true. Everything that is not of love is not true. We are imbalanced in the trait of truth when we lie to ourselves. And out of lying to ourselves, we lie to others as well, or we lie to others because we have an interest. I love you, but no, I actually don't really love you. I'm just saying that because I want something from you. Sometimes we're consciously manipulating, and sometimes we're literally lying to ourselves, and we don't even know that we're lying. So that's a lack of awareness. But lack of awareness doesn't just happen because we are somehow, God didn't give me enough awareness what to do. There's no such thing. Everyone has the same awareness. Exactly. There's no more, there's no less. It's only a willingness to look inside. And if I'm too proud, I'll defend my image of who I think I am rather than say, excuse my French, but fuck this image. I want to see what's really happening. Real is true. What's real is also true. Look at these words as synonyms. The world isn't true because this isn't real. What's real and true is forever. And that's spirit, that's consciousness. Yeah. So true and real, you can look at them in this regard as synonyms. If I'm going to be real with myself, I have to look past what I think I am and see what I really am. What am I really doing? What am I really thinking? What are people telling me about me that I think that they're just wrong? But if enough people tell me, maybe I should look at it. So anytime you lie, you separate. You separate you from yourself first. You separate from the truth, from God. You separate from your brothers. Lying is disconnecting. Lying creates a distance between us. Yeah. If I, for example, gaslighting, if I say, I'm a really good person and I do something to you that is hurtful to you, but then you tell me that I do something that's hurtful and I say, no, I don't. I think that's your issue. I don't do that. It could be a very, very, very well a dishonesty with myself. Yeah. And then I'm dishonest with myself. I'm dishonest with you. And then you find it hard to relate to me because I'm not being truthful. So seeing you're a liar, you could say, involves some pain of seeing that you are not who you really are. You're not really being the self. You're being a shadow of the self. You're creating situations in which the light of the self can't flow. If you're 100% true, when your thoughts, your emotions, and your deeds are absolutely one, there is no difference between how you are behind closed doors and behind how you are and how you are in public. You're always the same because as far as you're concerned, you're always before God. Whether you're alone, whether you're with other people, whether you're with animals, whether you're with trees, you're always in the company of God because that's all there is. And you want to be in a good relationship with that. You want to be like that. You want to be clean. You want to be pure. You want to be good. You want to be loving. Then you will always be impeccable, not just with your words, with your thoughts. That's where it all starts. Some people can speak really good words, but they're not aware that they're thinking impure thoughts, judgmental thoughts, in other words. Yeah. So it's not about, it's a good degree to be able to conquer. It takes some heroism, some discipline to conquer your words, to not say mean things, but it's a whole other level of discipline to discipline your thinking. And how do we discipline our thinking? The practice of the self-governance. Have the will to do good, then by contrast, you'll see, and to think good. By contrast, you'll see your not good thoughts, and you will make the choice. This is what I am. This is not what I am. Choose always to stay open like that. So when you're not flowing, when there's a place that you've been dishonest with yourself and the light can't flow through, right? That's where, again, diseases come from. When Jesus said, and you shall know the truth and the truth will set you free. Because truth is everything. When you're one with truth, you're 100% free. Not only does that mean freedom in the mind, physically, diseases can't exist within you. Yeah. Diseases are shadows. They're gaps. They're gaps in the light. They're places where the light doesn't flow. Right? Okay, so let's say that a woman of truth is what? A man of truth, a woman of truth is honest, first with herself, aware. She wants to see where she's not true. She wants to see where she's not good. He admits errors, regrets them, regrets the errors. And we'll talk about regret soon. Cleaves to goodness, is calm. When you're in the truth, you can be calm because there's something about the truth that keeps reminding you all is ultimately well. we're just in a video game. No one's really guilty. No one's really bad. We're just learning to flow the light, stop being so selfish and hoard the light to myself. Give it, give it, give it, give it, give it, give it. So a truthful person is going to be healthy, balanced, and there will be no hypocrisy in them. And that's a big deal. A person who's not truthful, whether they mean to or don't mean to, they're very hypocritical. And they need to have a little bit of shame about their lying, because shame is what teaches you that what you're doing is not good. I know we usually think of shame as like just a quality that we shouldn't have, but there's also goodness in shame. Shame, I'm ashamed. Oh, I'm ashamed to lie to existence. You can't lie to yourself. You can't lie to God. It's not really possible. You can't get away with it. It's like, oh, God's not looking. Wait, now I can be mean. Now I can think all these evil thoughts. Great. You know, if you want to think evil thoughts for a moment as a catharsis, just say, God, I'm asking for forgiveness in advance. All my brothers and sisters, I'm asking for forgiveness in advance. I don't really mean any of this. I just need this catharsis, right? But generally, you can't lie really and get away with it. And whatever you've lied about, it creates what we call negative karma. It's going to come back and bite you in the ass. Yeah. So basically, a person who never lies, who's always in truth, can never be harmed. You cannot harm that person. Nothing in existence can harm that person. That person is fully protected because their existence, they've become existence itself. Yeah. When you live in goodness, only goodness eventually comes to you. Yeah. So when the Course in Miracles says, nothing real can be threatened, nothing true can be threatened, nothing unreal, nothing untrue really exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Person who's attained that cannot be harmed. Okay. Let's see. I mean, there's infinite things I can say about this, but okay. Let's say you take truth as the most important thing. You want to be truthful always. And you're walking down the street and somebody has put on makeup that really makes them really doesn't help their looks at all. Does the opposite. Are we saying you should stop and be truthful and say, hey, you're really terrible at applying makeup? Obviously not. So when we're talking about being truthful, we're not saying to be honest where it doesn't help or where it hurts or things like that. We're not talking about insanely inappropriate honesty or things like that. What we're talking about more is about your relationship with the universe. If you're true, if you're not lying to the universe, if you're not being a good person in public, but then you're going home and you're thinking on nasty things and doing nasty things, then you're straight. You're in the straight and narrow, as they call it, right? Then you're straight. You're aligned with the universe. That's what truth really means. It's an alignment. It's an integrity. It's I am the same, whether I'm with my mom, whether I'm with my dog, whether obviously each person evokes something a little different, and that's natural and that's normal, but I'm not putting on a facade. So truth means there's no self-image anymore. I'm not acting out of an image. There's no ego in truth. Yeah. And a lie, we don't have to see it so horribly. All it means is you're out of tune. One of the strings in the guitar that you are is out of tune. So sometimes when the process of life cleans out or reattunes us, cleans out our lies or reattunes the guitar that we are, it hurts. It hurts. And it hurts mainly because we're grasping, holding on to, I am this kind of person. And the truth starts to shine on the lies that we hold within and goes no, you're not. This is what actually exists within you. It's coming from goodness. It's helping us be more free. It's not against us. Everything is for us. Everything is a gift. And so, but when you when that light is shined on it and you're letting it go, this is the process I call surfacing. Things surface up to be let go of through the process of living, through challenges, through relationships, all that kind of stuff. As you let it go, there could be an experience of suffering. The word suffering in Hebrew, yisurim, is also the same word as taking off, hasara. Yisurim, hasara. The suffering cleanses you, but the suffering needs to be only as intense as you make it, meaning the more you resist it, the more you defend, right? Because out of your pride, you defend, no, I am this person, I am in the truth, and don't tell me I'm not, or whatever. Then you're arguing, you're fighting, you're conflicting with the light. And that is where pain comes from. Pain is resistance to light. And if you keep resisting the light, disease. Because wherever the light flows, there's health. So let me ask you these questions real quick. I have 4 questions, and I want to know this. Who likes to lie? Raise your hand. Who likes to lie? No hands. Who likes to hurt other people? No. Who likes to hear about other people's suffering? Who gets a kick out of it? No one. Okay. Who likes to speak badly about other people? Likes it, like enjoys it. There you go. Yeah. So you see, but nobody's raising their hands. What does that mean about you? You're good. You're inherently good. You don't like to do bad. And that's the truth. That's the truth about you. No one here even thought to raise their hand to any one of these questions. You're inherently good. That's the truth about you. So when I'm telling you to be true, I'm not telling you to be something you're not. I'm telling you to be what you are. You're good. Think good thoughts, think loving thoughts. Be good, because that's what you are. Yeah. Okay, any questions about that? I mean, truth is huge, so we can talk about it like endlessly, but I think it's good to leave it at that kind of simplicity. It's like, the truth is, you don't enjoy doing bad. You don't enjoy thinking bad. You don't enjoy hurting another. You don't enjoy when another one's hurt. Your nature is altruistic. And I'm just saying, consciously be that. Identify yourself with that. That's kind of the takeaway from today. So if there are no questions, I'll just sum it up pretty quickly with some words on shame. Because shame, the purpose of it, everything is given us for us. Nothing is extraneous in existence. So why have we been given shame? So that we can just feel like shit? If God is good, that doesn't make any sense. Shame has to have a good purpose. And what shame does is it's actually what prevents you from going into your ego. If you're ashamed of your egoic actions, you don't want to commit them, it prevents you. That feeling of that bad feeling, that feeling of guilt, that feeling of, oh, I don't feel good about myself when I'm like that. When I do that, when I think that, I don't feel good about myself. Good. It's showing you that's not the way. It's when Adam and Eve ate the apple of the knowledge of good and evil that shame came in. They were ashamed. They were embarrassed. Whoa, shit, we're naked. But what it really means, the word for naked, arum, in Hebrew is the same root of the word cleverness or cunningness, amumiyut. The ability to be untrue awoke in them. The ability to lie, the ability to manipulate like a snake. Right? When we say about someone, he's a snake, he's manipulating me, don't believe what he says. He's taking advantage of the ego basically awoke. And now they had a choice to either choose the good or the bad, and overcome the bad, and choose the good, or not overcome the bad and just go with it. which eventually we're all coming to see that there's no fulfillment in that. Like a course says about the ego, you can sum its dictates up this way: seek and do not find. If you go at the ego, you can go and go and go and go, but happiness will not be yours. So shame is there to tell us you're going with the ego. Stop, come back to truth. If a person has no shame, they will do evil things, egoic things, and they will not feel regret or the need to be better. I've seen this a lot with like the way people talk right now about the war, Israel, Gaza, all of that kind of stuff. People have lost their shame. They have no shame to say the most horrendous things. They have no shame. And this is why they can't correct themselves. You have to have shame. You have to go, oh my God, what am I? Oof, I've lost my mind. What the hell am I saying? I'm reveling in the death of people. What's going on with me? Shame on me. Humble myself. I have to go back to the good ways, right? So shame, most people will be embarrassed. They don't call it shame. They'll be embarrassed to do something in public that might make them look bad. But then when they go home, they do it freely. So they're not really true. There's a difference between how they are in public and how they are in private. If your shame quality is more balanced, you'll actually be more ashamed also in private, meaning you won't be so dishonest. You won't be like, I can't do this in public, but I can do this at home. Like I can, whatever. It's fake. It's hypocritical. Like in public, I'm this good person, but then I come home and I'm not. So if I'm ashamed of that before God, because when I'm in private, I'm not really in private. What does the Course in Miracles say? There's no private minds. There's no private thoughts. Everything is really shared. You're not really alone ever. Yeah. Everybody's always in the true consciousness or spirit is always aware of everything. Your awareness when you leave the body has no limits. No limits. There's nothing that you cannot be aware of. So no one can lie. No one can be like, oh, no one's looking. It's bullshit. So be honest, be true in that sense. So if the reason that you're not doing something is because you're ashamed, embarrassed in front of other people, that's one of the lower degrees. If the reason you're not doing something is because you're embarrassed in front of love, because you're wrong, you're in your ego, that's a higher degree, because now you're getting to the real deal, which is your relationship with love itself, with God himself. So ultimately what you want to get to is that you realize that everything is God. And when you're acting in an ungodly way, you're a little bit embarrassed, you're a little bit ashamed, not to whip yourself, God forbid, that's not what I'm saying. It's to just say, oops, I feel a little bit guilty because this isn't who I am. And then you understand the guilt is there to just show you exactly that. It's not there for you to ask for punishment. Oh, I'm so terrible. Oh, punish me. It's more about just, oh, okay, the guilt is just showing me I'm off the track. That's it. If you want to get back on track, that's where the trait of regret comes in, which is very simple. Regret is on the gradient of integrity. Regret, I regret doing this. Oh, first of all, I have to confess, I did this. I did this thing. I did it. I'm working on myself still. I'm still working on myself. There's nobody in this world. There's almost nobody in this world who isn't. So it's not like something's wrong with you if you're working on yourself. You're actually doing really good if you're working on yourself. I'm confessing. Then I say, I regret this, meaning if I could go back in time and do it differently, I would. That's regret. If I could go back in time and respond differently or do it differently, I would. That's regret. And number three, the third step is I will not do that again. I'm committing to not do that again. Instead, I will do this. I won't do the ego's way. I'll do spirit's way. And literally even sit with yourself and write it out. This is what I did, and it was ego. I confess. I don't want to operate like that anymore. What would spirit do? Write that down and say, I'm committed to this. Now you're in integrity, because your guilt was only there to tell you, hey, buddy, you're not in your integrity. Regret helps you come back to your integrity. So you see how guilt and shame and regret can be used positively, how they can be for you, how they can have good in them and bring you back to the right way, the right mind. And so when you do that, your regret, actually what it's doing, your guilt and regret are karmically cleansing you. Because if I did something to someone, and the way that I can learn that what I did is very egoic and bad is by having it come back to me and having done to me what I did to the other, that's a really long and roundabout way of correcting yourself. And because karma is all about balancing. It's the name of the game is balance. Therefore, the law is don't do unto others what you would not have them do unto you. And so it's a karmic cleansing once I correct it in my mind. I don't have to actually live lifetimes and wait for what I did to come back to me so that I can learn not to do that again or whatever. I can just correct it in my mind. I can just say, okay, from now on, I'm committed to this, to spirit's way, not to ego's way when it comes to this matter. I've learned. Once you tell existence, I've learned, that's it. I've learned. You don't need to get punished for it. You know what I mean? It's not really a punishment, but you don't need to get it back in a physical way. Because remember, there is no physical. It's a video game that we're using to learn. We're using this video game. But if you can correct it straight in your consciousness, you don't need that. Yeah? The video game was only there to show you what was out of alignment, but once you've corrected it in yourself, it's over. Karmically speaking, it's over. Does that make sense? Does that sound right? Does that sound crazy? What do you guys think?
I'm having a bit of trouble understanding it because I feel like if without making some of the mistakes and learning from them, it wouldn't be clear that that's the wrong way. So then to regret making the mistake and to say that I wouldn't do it again means that I would never be able to learn the lesson. So
But
even though moving forward, I'll make a different choice. I don't want to change the choice that I made in the past so that I don't learn.
Right. So then you're seeing it as a gift. You're like, okay, good that this happened because now I'm correcting myself. I'm correcting my thinking. I'm correcting
and also deep down, I feel like there's a knowing when you see something, you have a thought that's unkind or hateful, or you look at something and you know that it's not really you. You don't believe it. That like there's, even without feeling guilt or shame or any of that self-judgment about what it is that you thought or what it is that you did, that you can still recognize that wasn't me. I don't understand the necessity
that's the identification.
to have the guilt and shame and all that mixed into it. If you can recognize it at face value, this isn't who I am, without any of that extra stuff.
I mean, if you're always truthful, you won't feel guilt or shame or regret. But I don't think there's a single person here who's always truthful. I mean, do you never feel guilt, shame? Ever? Embarrassment? Anything?
I don't feel it really like this, like you talk about.
It doesn't have to be, bold. It can be very small. It can be like, oh, I could do better. It can be that simple.
And I guess so most recently when I went through and I was thinking about like how our ill will to harm others was acting up in the world, I thought to myself, I was like, if I took a gun into a public place and tried to kill a bunch of people, would I want somebody to put me down? And my answer was yes. And so like I look at it like this, in that in some situations where people defend their existence when another wants to kill them, that I don't judge them for that, and nor would I judge myself in the same scenario. So
it's not about the judgment. It's about exactly what you actually said. Like, I feel like you are saying what I'm saying. It's just different wording, perhaps. It's not about the judgment. It's about realizing this, like what you said, this is not who I am. I said it, that this is not within my integrity. And remember, integrity is from the word integrated, an integrated whole. It's not from oneness. When I do something not from oneness, I regret it. Not in the sense that I want to take a whip and punish myself and sit here and dwell in self-judgment and all of that. I regret it because I'm just saying, I know this is not who I am. I can do better than this. And I will to do better than this. And it's just a correction.
But also on the Adam and Eve level, like if we all showed up without clothes on, why would we feel ashamed? I don't understand.
We're ashamed when we're in our ego because we know it's not true. Then the feeling of shame comes up and we go like, I know I wasn't right there. I know it. We know it. You have to be honest with yourself. I know when I'm being hypocritical, or wait, let me just finish this, Sharon. When I'm being hypocritical or lying, I can hide it from myself really, 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 really well. But something deep, deep, deep inside knows like, yeah, you're not there yet. And that's okay. You're still lying to yourself a little bit. But there's shame because it's not who I am. Anytime you act out of the ego, but that's not your actual will, you've made it clear to yourself, my will is to act out of oneness, out of integrity, out of goodness, out of bestowal of love. Then when you're not doing that, you'll feel like, I'm not fulfilling my will. I'm not fulfilling God's will. I'm a little bit ashamed about that. But that's not to like, I'm ashamed. Oh, how could I? It's not that kind of shame. It's a little bit of like, doesn't feel right. I want to align myself with God. I'm a little out of alignment. That's all. If you want to call it that, call it that then. Call it being out of alignment.
To do that, to realign
These are emotions that arise in everyone automatically. That's why I say people may or may not be aware of their shame, but unless you're living 100% truth, you have shame and you have guilt, 100%. It's laws of the universe. I'm not making this up. If you're 100% in truth, there's no shame, no guilt, no harm, nothing. If you're a little bit in the lie, there will be shame. That's the meaning of eating of the apple of knowledge of good and evil. Shame awoke because now you're not purely good. There's also bad in you.
But you just said also we sometimes aren't aware of the shame. So
yeah, because it exists. I'm talking to something that is, I'm not telling you feel ashamed. I'm saying when you feel ashamed, because it arises for all of us. Some can hide it, but it's there. When you feel ashamed, use your shame positively is all I'm saying. Thank you, Rico. Always good to see you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Sharon?
I keep coughing. I'm sorry.
You're good.
Let me just drink this for a minute.
Sure.
If we're watching television, see, my guidance has been I have not watched the war, not at all. And, my sister, pretty much judged me for it, but she doesn't know the work I'm doing. But my guidance was not to watch it because I had to just move away from it because and I didn't know if that was the right thing, but it feels right. Now, do I know what's going on? Yes. But it's a fight between both, Hamas and Israelis. But because I'm Jewish and my whole family's like in an uproar, I kind of just don't want to, I just stepped out of it, And it's hard to do that, but it was necessary. And I'm going to do that, I think, I don't know yet, but during the political thing. But I do watch television with my husband. And sometimes I make a lot, judgments come out. I don't like him or I don't like her. That's still, you're still playing. That's still my shame, isn't it? If I'm doing it in the movie.
I mean, shame is when you feel ashamed. At a certain degree of consciousness, you will be ashamed of those thoughts. Actually, the more light there is in you, the more clear the shame becomes to you because you're ashamed.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to hear that.
It becomes so clear to you that
if I watch something, like I always like juicy stories and stuff like that. And sometimes we watch these things together. And it's just nice to be with him. Eventually, I guess I won't have judgment.
It's a very, 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 very highly developed state of consciousness to be able to look at a Hamas terrorist or at somebody who's lynching somebody else or something like that and go, that is God on a journey that is equal to my journey. I can see it with forgiveness. I I can see the light even in them. And I know that in the grand scheme of all things, this is for good. Then you're staying in the goodness, even when you're watching the most evil action ever take place. Then you're staying in the goodness. You're not denying the badness, but you're
Do you
staying.
think I could watch it then? Would help me to see where I'm at?
Say what?
You think I should watch? Because I haven't watched it because I can't. My sister talks about babies being burnt. I think that it would make me.
Yeah.
It would make me nutty. I'm not an enlightened master.
Honestly, I honestly, it's very beautiful to me, Sharon, that you're even asking that, because it shows me a ton of spiritual maturity, that you're willing to even watch that to help yourself be in the
too. I want to help.
alignment.
I just want to help. I want to
So
serve.
beautiful, Sharon. I really admire that. Yeah. Honestly, it's between you and yourself. I wouldn't deliberately put myself through it. Honestly, it's because if you can't cleave to the goodness while you're watching that, it creates terrible impressions in your mind, terrible things.
And I know it'll make an imprint, and I've had a lot of imprints, and I'm trying to, and look, if we really are realistic, the political scene in this country is going to be probably dramatic. I don't want any parts of it. I don't want to know about it.
So this is why I can tell you what my course of action is with it. And I think everybody has to feel out for themselves where they're at in their consciousness and what they're able to hold and what they're not. And if you feel it's too much, then okay, that's okay. What my course of action with it was to sit with the evil of it. And again, evil is where the light just doesn't flow. And be aware of that and be absolutely like horrified. I was absolutely horrified, and then came to a resolution. I need to be the answer for this. I don't want to be any more a part of the problem. I'm fucking responsible for the war. It's my fault. It's my fault.
Right. So do you watch it? I mean, are you watching it? Because I don't have I only have Netflix
Instagram
and all those.
Enough to be horrified.
Oh, I don't even do that. No, I feel that it's probably down the road when I feel more, sturdy in this presence, where I won't.
If you're doing your best to be and think love all the time, you're doing all that you need to do. Yeah. And this war, you don't have to put yourself through sometimes there's a good thing about putting yourself through intentional suffering. That's another thing that Gurdjieff used to teach that, actually. I don't know why he's coming up today, but anyway.
I don't know. I mean, I'm on my phone now, but I don't,
But don't feel good about the fact that you really want to be helpful and go with that. And one of the things I recommend to people, and that's what's so beautiful about you, Sharon, is that you really want to be helpful, and I can see it. And one of the things I recommend to people is we have to stop living in the knowing and in the answer and humble ourselves and live more in the question. So if you want to be helpful, say to God, say to existence, I don't know how to be as helpful as I possibly can, but I'm going to hold that question. How can I be helpful? How can I be really, 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 truly, 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 truly helpful? And live that question. And as you live it, what you're doing, let me explain to you how it works in the spiritual mechanics of it. When you ask a question like I just said, you're actually, so God is infinite light. So this infinite light's always looking to come down, to descend upon us, but it needs receptacles to be received. The light is like rain. Think about raindrops, but we need receptacles to receive it, because otherwise it can't go anywhere. If we're blocked, it just doesn't reach us. When you're asking a question like that, how can I be truly helpful in this world? Or in my world, in my environment, then you're creating a vessel for the light to be received. The more we live in questions and not answers, the more we're creating vessels, and the raindrops of infinite light can come into this world, because we're holding questions that invite it in and say, we want more of you. We want more of this light. What can we do to be more of this light? See what I'm saying? Every time you ask a question of how you can be more loving, you're creating vessels for the light, and you're literally ascending the whole earth by being the question. by being a vessel that says, I'm ready to receive your light. I'm being the vessel. I'm being the question for your answer. Give me your answer. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. It's a very high teaching. This is a high teaching.
It is. And so that's what I say, that the higher it's be kind to yourself, take it easy. Remember, ultimately, this whole balancing thing is the name of the game, but it's also a game. This is a game, not too serious.
It's a game, but then when people get hurt or something, it does hurt. I do fill up. My eyes
and it
fill
should.
up.
It should hurt us when people get hurt, because it shows us this is not who we are. That's why it hurts. This is not who we are. And
I was told by my therapist when I was 25, I was an empath. And then, because I've always been that way. I've always wanted to just make a difference. But I also had a very hard story. The people out there that weren't there were my thoughts, the part of me that I wanted to disown. So now I'm bringing that all in, and I'm just trying to own everything. And it does take time. I don't think we're going to do this in a week. It's going to be a while.
It's a lifetime work, and there's more, and there's more, and there's more, and there's more. I mean,
you are beautiful. You are a beautiful teacher. You're a gift for everybody.
Think about reaching Jesus's level. We usually belittle it. We usually look down on it and he's just an enlightened dude. He wasn't just an enlightened dude. He was really, really, really one of the few who went all the way. And a lot of us think we're already there. This is something that Ram Dass said that we should all keep in mind for humility. He said, when you think you're free, there's no way out. This is what we do with our little arrogant pride. We always think, I've attained it. That's it. I've seen there's no me, or I've attained it. I'm loving most of the time, or whatever. And we're not honest with ourselves, and we're not, you think you're free, so now you can't see where you're not. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
All right. So we're going on almost 2 hours soon. Anybody else want to say anything before we begin closing here?
It's a lovely group, Daniel. Like the way the way you're giving everybody these teachings. It's an unusual teaching,
It is unusual. It's time for us to talk about really
making a difference,
really doing it and getting off the high horse and getting real. Yeah.
I just love you. I think you're the best.
I love you too. Okay.
Thank
Scott,
you. Thank
or
you so
anyone
much.
wants to say anything? Thank you, Carmen.
Well, I just want to say that you're all very beautiful, and I can see the Son of God shining through each of us like a ray of sunshine. And if there's any me, that's the me that we are, the Son of God. And I really do see that.
Beautiful. Amen.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and remember, with the people that you have challenges with, sometimes just literally, if you're seeing them, if it's not a phone call or something, if you're actually seeing them, put a crown on their head, envision them with the crown. Because especially if you're a visual kind of person, it will help you. And I'm thinking about like Larissa with her teenage daughter. It'll help you approach them more divinely rather than egoically.
Thank you, everyone.
I shall see you next week. We'll go a little bit deeper, and it's likely to be maybe our last one of these in the series of the Face of Freedom. Maybe we'll do another one that sort of summarizes it and kind of connects all the pieces. So 1 or 2 more of these. And yeah, enjoy practicing. Remember, we're doing a community 40-day challenge. Okay, it's gonna be fun. Let's see what happens. Cleave only to the good thoughts. Let's try. Let's do our best. Great. All right. Lots of love, guys.